The first thing you should know is that I never believed in fate. Fate was for Hallmark movies and cheap paperback romances, not for guys like me who learned how to survive behind barbed wire and concrete walls. And yet, the second I opened my apartment door and saw him standing across the hall, the word fate hit me like a sucker punch. Because there he was, the boy I used to write letters to when I was locked away, the one who carried my words through nights that smelled of bleach and despair, the one I never thought I'd see again outside of ink and paper. His name was Alex. My Alex. I stood frozen, keys still dangling from my hand, heartbeat drumming like I was back in that cell hearing the footsteps of guards. He noticed me, of course he did. His eyes, those same deep ocean eyes I used to imagine while scrawling my crooked sentences in the dark, widened with something I couldn't name. Shock, relief, maybe even recognition. It had been 6 years. 6 years since I last wrote his name at the bottom of a letter, sealing it with the silent wish that he'd never forget me. 6 years since my hands shook as I pressed the page against my chest, pretending it was him. And now he was here, living across the goddamn hall. Ethan? His voice was low, cautious, like he didn't dare believe it. I almost laughed, because wasn't that the cruelest part? That I spent nights in juvie praying to hear his voice for real, and now it was right there, echoing in a dull beige hallway, and I didn't know how to breathe. Yeah, I whispered, and it was all I could manage. We didn't speak long that first night. Couldn't. My body was rigid, wound tight like barbed wire around my ribs. I shut the door faster than I should have, pressing my back against it, trying not to slide down to the floor like some broken thing. I remembered every word he ever wrote. How he told me about the oak tree in his backyard where he'd sit with his guitar. How he described the taste of freedom as ice cream melting too fast in the sun. How he signed every letter with "Someday, Ethan." Someday. I never told him I kept those letters hidden under my mattress, folded so many times the creases nearly tore them in half. I never told him that when the lights went out and the others snored or fought in their dreams, I held those words like they were oxygen. And now Someday was standing across the hall, and I was terrified. The next morning, I ran into him again, coffee in hand, hoodie thrown on, trying to look casual when every step felt like walking into fire. "Hey," Alex said, as if years hadn't stretched like oceans between us. His smile was hesitant, boyish in a way that hurt. "Hey," my voice cracked, traitor that it was. "You live here." "Yeah, you," he chuckled. Across the hall, apparently. We both laughed at that, the kind of brittle laughter that fills silence but doesn't erase it. Still, it was something. I noticed the small scar under his chin new, not from the boy I used to know. His hair was shorter, sharper, like he'd grown into himself but hadn't lost the softness I once clung to. He carried himself with the ease of someone who hadn't tasted prison food or counted the days on scratched walls. But there was a heaviness in his eyes too, a shadow I didn't remember. I wanted to ask him everything. Did he keep my letters? Did he think of me when he wrote them? Or was it just pity? Did he know that he saved me? But the words stuck, fossilized in my throat. Instead, I just said, "You look good." His smile flickered. "So do you." That night, sleep didn't come. I sat on my balcony, chain-smoking the way I swore I wouldn't, staring at the glow from his window. And when his curtain shifted and I saw him there, sitting on the floor with a guitar in his lap, strumming softly, I nearly lost it. Because that's who he was. The boy who strummed hope into melodies, even for someone like me. The thing about stories like this, the ones that feel too impossible to be real, is that they don't start with fireworks. They start with two people stumbling, fumbling, tripping over the weight of their past until one of them finally has the courage to speak. For us, it happened 2 weeks later. He knocked on my door. I opened it, half expecting him to say it was a mistake, that I wasn't who he thought I was. Instead, he held out something in his hand, a folded piece of paper, my handwriting, my letter. "I kept them," Alex said, his voice breaking, "every single one." And in that moment, the years dissolved. The pain, the distance, the silence, they all cracked open, making room for something else. Something fragile. Something real. I took the letter from his hand with shaking fingers. My own handwriting stared back at me, clumsy and uneven. The words of a boy who thought no one in the world cared enough to read them. Except he had. He had read them, carried them, kept them like they mattered. I don't understand, I whispered. You don't have to, Alex said. His eyes were wet, though he tried to smile. But I need you to know that you weren't just writing into a void. You weren't forgotten. The air between us thickened, heavy with 6 years of unsaid truths. I wanted to thank him, to scream at him for not finding me sooner, to ask why now, why here. Instead, I just let the silence swallow me whole. He stayed a little while, long enough for us to sit awkwardly on my couch, long enough for him to strum his guitar like old times. The melody was soft, hesitant, but familiar, the same one he used to describe in his letters. I realized then that even in his absence, I had memorized him. When he left that night, I felt both lighter and lonelier. Weeks passed. We became neighbors in every sense of the word, passing in the hall, sharing cups of coffee, sometimes sitting together on our balconies, talking until the city lights blinked out. Slowly, the edges of our past softened, but the tension remained, a quiet storm beneath the surface. One evening, as summer bled into fall, we found ourselves sitting side by side on his floor. Empty beer bottles scattered around us, his guitar resting on his knee. He plucked a tune, humming low, and I couldn't stop watching the way his lips curved around sound. Do you ever regret it? I asked suddenly. He looked at me. Regret what? Writing to me. Getting involved with someone like me. His answer came too fast. Never. I laughed, bitter. You don't mean that. I do. His gaze was steady, unflinching. You think I saved you, Ethan, but the truth is you saved me too. I was lonely, scared. You made me feel seen when I was invisible in my own home. The words hit me harder than any fist ever had. Before I knew it, my hand brushed his, tentative, searching. He didn't pull away. Instead, his fingers curled around mine, and the world narrowed to that one fragile point of contact. I thought about all the times I dreamed of this moment when I was locked up, about how impossible it had felt. And now it was real. Alex? I whispered, his name cracking like glass on my tongue. He leaned closer. I felt his breath against my cheek, smelled the faint scent of beer and soap. My chest ached with wanting. And then he kissed me. It wasn't fireworks or symphonies. It was soft, clumsy, hesitant, the kind of kiss you give when you've been waiting years to try, terrified it will break the spell. But it didn't break. It bound. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. I don't know what this means, he said, but I don't want to lose it. Me neither, I breathed. Love doesn't erase scars. It doesn't make the past vanish. What it does is remind you that the past doesn't have to decide the rest of your life. Of course, it wasn't easy. There were days I woke sweating from dreams of locked doors. Nights when I pushed him away out of fear, he'd see how broken I really was. There were moments when I thought I didn't deserve him, when I told myself he should run before I ruined him. But Alex stayed. Every time I stumbled, he reached out. Every time I built walls, he picked at the cracks until light slipped through. One night, after an especially brutal nightmare, I found him sitting at my bedside, holding my hand as if he'd been there all along. His thumb traced circles on my skin. You're safe now, he whispered, over and over, until I finally believed him enough to close my eyes. Our story didn't stay confined to those hallways. We started sharing little pieces of our worlds. I met his friends, who teased him about the mysterious guy across the hall until he introduced me. I started showing up to his gigs at small coffee shops, sitting in the back, pride swelling every time his voice filled the room. He came with me to meetings with my parole officer, waiting outside even when I told him not to. He helped me look for jobs, reminding me that my past didn't define my worth. And one night, sitting together on his balcony under the stars, he told me something that changed everything. I used to think love was supposed to be perfect, he said. But now I think it's supposed to be real, messy, hard, worth fighting for. That's what you are to me, Ethan. Worth fighting for. The tears came before I could stop them. But this time I didn't hide. Months later, winter painted the city in silver and cold. I woke one morning to find snow dusting the balcony rails, the world quiet and still. Alex stood there in my hoodie, hair messy, grinning like a kid. "Snowball fight?" he asked, holding a lump of snow in his hand. I groaned, pulling the blanket over my head. "You're insane." He laughed, climbing into bed beside me, shaking melting flakes onto my face. I cursed, he kissed me, and the world felt both endless and impossibly small, contained in that single room. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. If you asked me now whether I believe in fate, I'd probably still tell you no. I don't think the universe wrote this story for us. I think we wrote it ourselves, line by line, letter by letter, until someday finally arrived. And if someday lives across the hall, with a guitar in his hands and love in his eyes, then maybe I was wrong. Maybe fate was real after all. We never stopped being who we were. I will always be the boy who wrote letters from behind bars, aching for freedom. Alex will always be the boy who answered, offering pieces of himself through paper and ink. But together we became something more. Not perfect, not easy, but ours. And in the quiet of our apartment hallway, where it all began again, sometimes I catch his hand in mine and think, this is what I was writing toward all along. Not the end. Not even the beginning. Just the middle of a story we're still telling, every single day. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.